Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, many of you will have heard, of course, of Peter Kellner. He was for many years a print and television journalist. He was deeply involved with the setting up of YouGov, along with Nadeem Sahala, I think. He's a pundit who often courts controversy, shall we say, but is someone deeply ingrained in the political system, and he knows whereof he speaks. He's made some, I've got to say, very odd predictions about the results of Thursday's general election. Very different, I think, from most of the current polling. He's put Labour down, Tories up. He's got very little time, I think, for reform. And we're going to have a look at the numbers he's saying are likely to be sort of forming on Friday when, we get into the meat of the count. But given the current polling, it seems very odd that he is so disparate from, let's just say, the commonly held trends. But we'll investigate that, take a look and see why Kellner is where he is on his take. And it is purely, I think, his take in an article that he's written for his own website, Kellner Politics. It's an interesting thing, though. But let's take a look. Here goes. Now, of course, currently everyone is saying that Labour's going to have this huge majority. It's going to be all one-sided. The Tories are dust. Reform will get 15, 20 seats maybe, and things like that. But Kellner is coming from a different view, and he's saying that the numbers are likely different. Although, as you can see from the headline here, he says he may be wrong, and that's fair enough. It is, after all, like much of what we do, speculation until we have the facts. So, this is him doing this piece. So he's saying that my predictions, Peter Kellner's predictions for Thursday, and why they may be wrong. So, we'll have a look and see what he's talking about and why he thinks he's wrong. Spoiler alert, he said, Labour will win this week's general election, and I think that is without doubt, and I think everyone just expects it. The question is, by how much, not who. We all know they're just gonna trounce it. But the question is, how big, of course, is the majority? Anyway, he says, however, important uncertainties remain. Will Conservatives be able to provide an effective opposition? Will Reform's appeal surge or fade between now and Thursday? Will a low turnout eat into Labour's majority? Will the SNP still be Scotland's top party? I'm going to make the prediction that the SNP will not be Scotland's top party. That's a fairly safe prediction, I think, given the current polling is Labour are 6 points ahead or something, aren't they? Anyway, he says, these are my predictions. He says, and the assumptions that underpin them, he says, and I am certain about one thing. At least one of my assumptions will be wrong. Possibly all of them. I don't know. I've looked at these numbers and I'm like, really? Which is why I thought it was interesting. They are weird numbers that he's predicting. He says, on Thursday night, the biggest surprise would be if there are no surprises. I think, yes, he's probably right there. And there's going to be one or two very big names leaving politics, at least short term. And God help us, please let Angela Rayner be one of them. But anyway, here's what he's saying. Labour, they will get 37% of the vote, and this will give them 400 seats across the whole of Britain. Now that's down a lot from other polls. Conservatives, 24%, giving them 155 seats. That's like 100 seats more than the predictions. So what is this? Quiet Tories? Is it Reform switching back to Tory? Who knows? But that's a big change. That is a massive change. The Lib Dems, 13%, 50 seats. That tends to be about where the polling is. Slightly above, I think. 47 or something was one I saw. Reform, 13%, but only 2 seats. Now, that's very much down on current trending. Most of the current polling is showing Reform on around 10, 15, 20 seats. 20 seats on a good day, but they would not be surprised to get 15, and even then 10 would be massive for them. Greens 7%, 2 seats. Caroline Lucas is leaving. They've got a couple of one in Bristol, I think, and obviously the mad lot down in Brighton, so possibly 2. The one in Bristol is challenging Thangdeen, I can't remember her name, some mad far left Labour Muslim woman who is absolutely horrific in some of the things she's saying, and so people I think are a bit scunnered of that and they won't vote for her. Anyway, the SNP will get 33% of the vote in Scotland, obviously nationwide very, very tiny amount in comparison out of the 60 odd million, nearly 70 million of us, and others including Northern Ireland 23 seats. The few undoubted Sinn Féins of course won't ever take their seats, so that'll be there. So a Labour majority 150 seats. Now that's way down from the predictions of a 400 seat majority, and whilst it's still a big Labour majority, it does at least mean more opposition voices on committees and things like that. So it's not too bad. So if they could get away with anything close to that, I think it would be fair enough. I would be very, very surprised if Kellner's prediction is right. But anyway, we'll have a look. He says, on these figures, Labour is on course for a landslide in seats without coming anywhere near a landslide in votes. In parliamentary terms, Keir Starmer will have a gold-plated mandate. Whether it gleams so brightly to voters outside Westminster is another matter. However, any prediction is subject, of course, to error. These are my assumptions on why each could be wrong. Number 1, the polls. Those showing Labour leads of 16 to 18% are nearer the truth, he reckons, than those showing the 23 to 25%. Companies showing lower leads adjust their raw data, in particular to take account of the 2+ million people who voted Conservative in 2019, but now say they don't know. This adjustment brings into play today's equivalent of shy Tories that gave John Major his victory back in '92, and everyone was totally astonished. Not least of all, of course, John Major himself. He'd already phoned Pickford's. Anyway, he said, while it might be wrong, he said, perhaps those ex-Tories won't return home. Instead, they'll vote for Reform, or even Labour or Lib Dem, or simply register their protest by abstaining, in which case the larger leads will turn out to be right. And then he says there's also the Farage factor. It says, with past peak Reform, some Tory defectors tempted by Farage will decide to vote Conservative after all. But why that might be wrong is Reform support could stay solid and even rise further, and this could help Farage have 5 or 6 colleagues in the new Parliament and help Labour remove 20 or more Tory MPs who would otherwise hold their seats. Every extra Labour gain increases its majority by 2. An extra 20 seats resulting from Reform's vote holding up would increase Labour's majority by 40. Yeah, because it's a zero-sum law, isn't it? He's talking about turnout. He says this will be down. Labour will suffer more than the Conservatives in a low turnout. He says one of the toughest challenges for pollsters is to decide which of their respondents will actually vote at all. In recent elections, the British Election Study has found that only half of people under 30 even bother to turn out. And of course, the under 30s are the ones most likely to vote Labour because they are not yet old enough and developed enough and have enough to suddenly realise that they've got stuff that they need to conserve. Compared with around 80% of those over 65. Labour's lead is greatest among younger voters. The polls try to take all this into account, but if more under 30 stay at home than they expect, Labour will fall short of the predicted support. All you need is a good rainstorm. This might be totally wrong in opposite ways. He says anger with the Tories among younger voters may increase their turnout through the fuck you Tory vote. Labour might suffer double trouble with many under 30 staying at home, while others, confident that Labour will win anyway, feel strongly enough about Brexit, climate change and Gaza to vote Green or Lib Dem instead. You want to hope. Labour's tax plans. Sunak will fail to persuade enough voters that he will tax them less than Starmer. Regardless who gets in, taxes are going up. That's it. There's no doubt around it. Because we've got all those nice new Brits coming across on their little boats that was got to be paid for. Millions upon millions of pounds a day. They've got to be paid for somehow. All those free cigarettes they get, you know, ain't cheap. Anyway, the polls have consistently found that most people think taxes will go up anyway, whoever wins the election. The dial didn't move when Sunak promised further national insurance cuts. I don't want national insurance cuts. I want a rise in the tax-free amount before you start even paying tax. That would be more helpful, but it just costs more. And he wants the, oh look, I've reduced tax. No, you haven't. Why it might be wrong? In 1992, uncertain voters were wooed by a strong campaign against Labour's double whammy on taxes. I remember the old double whammy. That was a while. Yeah, I can't believe it was 30 odd years ago. Anyway, Sunak might yet regain some ground in the final days. Already he is. Latest polling is showing, should I say, that the Tories are closing on Labour. But don't let that fool you. They are still that far behind. It's a tiny swing on an already massive lead. Labour aren't worried. There's only 3 days to go. He said, how sweet sing? How sweet sing? How seats swing? Wow. For the first time since 1945, the Tories will lose most votes in normally safe Tory seats all over the place. There is no safe seats for Tories. This is why you get the Prime Minister go around the seats that have got 20,000 majorities. That would never have happened before. It's all the marginals they go to. Not anymore. They're trying to save the big ones because they know even all the little ones have gone. It's bad, isn't it? Let's have a look at this Scotland one. Scotland, he said, Labour will regain top place. Based on recent polls, I predict that Labour MPs will outnumber SNP MPs 28 to 18. Oh, you think there's as many as 18, do you, Peter? Not sure. This will be depriving John Swinney, Scotland's First Minister, of his claim that the SNP has a mandate for demanding a fresh referendum on independence. That's what we want to see. We want to see the SNP annihilated just to shut them up about, oh, well, you know, we got this mandate. No, you haven't. You clearly haven't. Go away. He says why this might be wrong is there are likely to be many seats won and lost by tiny majorities. A late swing back to the SNP or a small polling error could reverse those seat predictions and revive Swinney's mandate argument, and we want to hold not. So remember, folks, you've got to get out, you've got to vote, and you've got to vote tactically. Don't let them back in. It will destroy everything. Coming up. So there you go, the Kellner Analysis. I don't know how accurate it will be. I don't know how accurate you think it will be. The important take is we must beat the SNP, and he's saying there's going to be a lot of small majorities, and they are the swings. Make sure you vote in them. Check. Tactical voting. Some weird numbers in there, though, isn't there? Let's hope he's closer than some of the other predictions. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video, and I'll speak to you later. Bye.